Okay. Okay. So welcome everybody to OHASSTA Tuesdays. Today is Social Science Smash Up with Laura Shelton. I just want to start, I guess, with a land acknowledgement. So Laura and I are working for the District School Board of Niagara, so we're in the Niagara region. I just want to begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the District 1 Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is the home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous people. Just to kind of give you just a sense, I'm just going to do some housekeeping items from OHASSTA, and then I'm going to move it on over to Laura. But OHASSTA is the Ontario History and Social Science Association. We're a volunteer organization, and we've been operating since 1978. We have a lovely webpage, which I will share with you later, and we continue to support elementary and secondary school teachers in best practices and also providing an environment for collaboration and sharing. We also just want to take this time to express our gratitude to Ontario Teachers Federation for their use of the Zoom account so that we can continue to stay connected. OHASSTA has been a supporter of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, especially the calls 62 and 63. We believe that our members have an important role in learning and sharing with our students and getting the historical and contemporary truths of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Canada. And as a result of this, we continue to work on collaborating on calls 62 and 63. And we're committed to respectful relationships so we can continue to work and learn and grow together. If you've never used Zoom before, you'll see on the bottom there's a bar that appears for you. You can mute yourself. So if you aren't talking in a breakout group or you don't have a question for Laura, it's best if you mute yourself so there's no background noise. You can start and stop your video, and you'll see that there's a chat feature. So we will be sharing some links out, especially for the breakout groups. So if you want to have your chat feature open, then you can access them. When you go into breakout groups, you'll also be able to still access your chat, so you don't have to worry about the links disappearing. So today is the Social Science Smash Up. So we're basically, Laura's going to give us tons of resources, ideas, and we're going to have some informative discussions on the use of a few things, which I'm going to let Laura uncover. But that's what this webinar is all about. And to get started, introducing Laura Shelton. This is Laura Shelton. She works with me at the District School Board of Niagara. She's been teaching for 13 years in a variety of courses. She's also a program leader of the Canadian World Studies and Social Science and Humanities Department. I have been lucky to know Laura for many years. In fact, she covered one of my maternity leaves. And one thing I can say about Laura is she is brilliant, kind, humble, and always looking to collaborate and share with others. So I'm super excited that she agreed to host this webinar today. And I'm going to turn it on over to her. Welcome, Laura.
Everyone, first I want to say thank you to Sarah for asking me to do this. And I'd also like to thank you, everyone for joining us today. It's the summer. I know some people are doing summer school, are enjoying their vacations, doing curriculum writing, getting ready for September, etc. So thank you for joining today, and hopefully you come away with some good resources that you can use in September. So first I'd like to start off with a poem called Brave Spaces. So I'm just going to read it out loud, and then we'll kind of break it down a little bit. Together, we would create brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. So that's a poem that's written by Mickey Scott B. Jones, and I was actually introduced to it last week during a Facing History seminar. If anyone hasn't had the opportunity to take a Facing History seminar, you definitely should look into that organization. It's absolutely fantastic. So when I first heard this poem, I thought this would be a great way of introducing the course and starting off the course and introducing the idea of classroom contracts. I know on the first day, I like to with the class create the norms and expectations for my classroom. I try not to just sit there and be like, these are my rules. This is what I want you to do. I like to do it together with the students and to co-create them together, because it gives them a little bit of ownership. I also usually have them sign the contract. And it's really cool because eventually they'll start being like, okay, like, you don't got to use I statements. Oh, no put downs. It kind of reminds you of some material from tribes. But I just thought it'd be a really great way of introducing the norms for a classroom, especially I think in a social science classroom when we're talking about a lot of controversial and sensitive topics. I think it's very important that we teach students how to properly have discussions, especially if we get into seminars. We need to teach the students how to be respectful and what is expected of them. So what you could do with this, some activities after reading this poem out to the class, you could potentially have them, pick out a phrase, certain words that they think stands out that's powerful. You can ask them questions such as, what does a brave space look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And together you can break that down and decide, these are the things that we need to incorporate in, our physical classroom or our online classroom. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do a breakout room regarding this poem. So the prompt is, how do you create brave space? Oh,
Sorry.
No worries. How do you create brave and safe spaces? What successes have you had? And you can share your thoughts on the Padlet. So we'll give you about, I believe, about 5 minutes for this.
That's right. Okay,
So
and then if you want to, go ahead, Laura.
I was going to say, if you forget the questions, last week I kept on forgetting the questions and then I realized that they were in the chat below.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put you in breakout groups. I put the Padlet link in the chat. So if a few things, you can either answer the question using the Padlet as a group, or if there's any other resources that you use in order to create brave and safe spaces in your classroom, you can also feel free to share them on the Padlet as well. Okay, so I'm going to put you in breakout groups, 5 minutes, introduce yourself, and then I'll also put the prompt in the chat as well as the Padlet. Okay, enjoy, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes.
If that's okay. Do you feel okay doing that?
Oh yeah, no, that's fine, yeah. Okay. So welcome back, everyone. I see that lots of people have added some ideas to the Padlet. I don't know if anyone feels comfortable to unmute themselves and kind of just share some ideas or what they found with creating safe and brave spaces.
I can go ahead.
Sure, that would be great. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Sarah. It's nice to see you. Nice to see everybody here.
Okay.
And I really liked what I think it was Chris said in our little discussion about we all talked about how we do this co-creation of rules, but that the kids really want to come into these classes and talk about the taboo subjects, like discuss the undiscussable. And it's really, really important that we do this for this class in particular.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Does anybody else want to share? It's interesting, this from Peel District School Board, this climate for learning and working in action. I'm not sure if anybody's willing to speak about that.
So I actually work for Ottawa now, but I have some fantastic colleagues in Peel that developed the resource, and I've stolen it kind of and used it. So I think it's pretty great. It's a couple, I think 100 and 150 pages long of activities from K to 12, working on different activities that build a positive climate in your classroom. And it tells you which age group it's appropriate for. So I've used it a couple times for high school students. And I can share a PDF if to send it out to the group. I don't think Peel would mind.
Oh,
That'd be awesome.
that would be amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Who should I send it to?
You can either send it to me, I can put my email address, or you can share it in the chat, whichever one you want to do.
Can I share a PDF in the chat though?
Only if you have a link. Okay, I'll send you I'll put my email address in here.
Okay.
And then I can add it, I'll add it to the resources.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Rachel. Does anybody else want to share what they were chatting about, or any resources?
I just wrote in the Padlet that our group spoke a bit about doing a lot of get to know you activities first, that this would be a poem that we wouldn't necessarily use on day 1 or even day 2, but it's fairly, deep and significant, right? So maybe more at the end of that first week or in the second week.
Thank you. That's
I also wanted to add,
Oh,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I also wanted to add, I don't know if everyone saw the chat, but Sherry mentioned that the poem is actually 15 years old, so it's been around for a while. But for me, as I said, it was just introduced to me last week during my last seminar.
Laura, you mentioned tribes. And essentially it mirrors it very, very closely as far as the 4 agreements and the phases of the trail as far as belonging, influence, and community, bringing kids together. And that itself has the manual as far as introducing activities and team building at appropriate times when the group is coming along and feeling those areas when they feel comfortable enough to share and risk take and come together as a collaborative group. So it's something that you can do as a strategy called Ideal Classroom to create an atmosphere where everyone wants to come together to be there as a working group. I usually use it in the first week, and I use a poem by Ham Chanu. But I'm thinking of it. I'm going to switch it out for yours.
Nice, thanks.
Or you could even have them compare the two, right? Like use both
Yeah,
of them.
yeah. You could also do the other poem looks at you as the weather per se in the classroom, setting the tone, and how you're an instrument of inspiration and joy, or an instrument of sort of thunder clouds and humiliation if you use your power in the wrong way. It's a captive audience. So if you're not careful with your words, etc. So they're both really powerful poems.
Definitely.
To co-create how you'd like to be together.
Nice, thanks. we will share the slideshow, and there are additional links attached. So the blue, taking school online with a student-centered approach, you'll be able to access that. We're going to move ahead.
So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was identity charts, and this kind of goes along with creating a brave space and inclusive space. I have used identity charts before in the grade 12 HSE 4M class, but I'm thinking that I will be I think I'll incorporate them into my grade 11 HSP class this year, probably within the first or the second week. I teach at a very small school. We have about 60 kids in grade 11, so I know all of the kids. They're with us since grade 6. But identity charts, I think, are an excellent way of kind of breaking down stereotypes, and they're a really effective classroom tool of building community. You can use them in different ways. So I said, if you wanted to use them near the end of week 1, you could have each student create their own identity chart. So the idea is that they put their name in the middle. I've included 2 examples. The one example is from Facing History. The other example is one that I made for myself. And they're basically including, like, their different social locations and, parts of their identity that they want to share. Now, if you're going to do this activity, it's really important to mention that you let the students know whether or not they will be sharing this with a classmate in front of the class, because some people don't want to share all parts of their identity, and that can actually be a question that you have them reflect on, about which identities are you more willing to share. And I said that's something that you need to be upfront about. But it can also be used, I was thinking in HSP, I could potentially also use it in anthropology or any unit when you want to look at a historical figure. You could have them create one for Sigmund Freud or bell hooks, etc. But for me, at least, I was thinking I was going to use it at the beginning of the course to help me get to know my students and kind of break down those barriers. Another good thing about this is that you can do it with like a regular piece of paper. There's templates online. You can have them use technology depending on what the situation is in September. There's a lot of cool websites out there that can help make mind maps for this. Overall, it's a good way of creating an online community. So I think next what we're going to do is we're going to do another short breakout.
So we're going to do a short breakout, but this one is just to get a sense of, like, take 90 seconds and kind of create your own identity chart using a piece of paper in front of you, or if you want to use the computer, if that's faster, just to get a sense of what you think the students will be adding to their identity charts, or the process that you think they'll go through. And then just kind of think about, again, you can use the Padlet because entering into this coming school year, we really don't know what school will look like. So how is it that you think you're going to create an online community? Are identity charts something you think you might use, or do you have any other ideas or resources? So that's kind of where we're headed. So we'll probably give you 6 or 7 minutes so that you can share your identity charts, and then also kind of have a discussion about how you think you're going to create this online community. So I'm going to put you in breakout groups again. I'm just going to make them just a little bit smaller this time, just so. Okay. Okay, here we go. We'll see you in 6 minutes. Okay. Welcome back again. I see that there's a few resources that have been shared and some more that are coming. Not sure if anybody wants to jump in and let us know what they've shared on the Padlet or any other ideas.
I can speak to the personal and social identity wheels that I posted. I think I posted.
Yeah.
There you go. I've used almost like a symbolic interaction approach at the start of HSB or in the Global Indigenous Studies course, where to understand Indigenous elements of people, you know, just one facet of somebody's identity, but really to get to know the students privately, not so much sharing with the class. Kids have identified what people think when they see them. So that's like the social identity wheel, and they have some problems doing this. They have to ask people sometimes, you know, what do you think when you see me? So very much getting into the race and gender lens. And then the personal identity wheel is a chance for them to really expand on what matters to them and who they are really beyond that teenage identity. And I've had some really good success even with drawing this on Thoughtbooks. So sharing on the outside of their thought book, that social identity, but on the inside, their more, you know, private personal identity. So the artists come out, or they can smack up words or whatever. But I've used it for the last few years, and it's really been revealing to help me understand the students. Haven't quite got it into the small group or sharing with other kids. So that would be my next thing to work on.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Does anybody else want to chat at all about what they've? So quiet. Okay. So we will continue. Thank you very much for sharing, everyone. And if you think of anything else, feel free to go back and add it to the Padlet. Okay.
So the next thing I want to talk about is Thoughtbooks. Now, I wouldn't. They are, I would say, a quasi Thoughtbooks. They aren't fully Thoughtbooks, because I know Thoughtbooks are the defining features of Thoughtbooks would be like there's a response to genuine inquiry, they're ongoing, reflective, and investigative thinking. Some of the components of the thought book are like that, but not all of them would meet the defining features of a thought book. So the thought books that I created, I've been using them for years. I've actually always had a book that I've created itself on tabloid, like the very large paper. And the kids every year when I ask for their feedback, they're always like, that's my favorite assignment. I love the thought book. Keep making thought books, to the point where like I eventually made one for sociology as well. So what I do with thought books is I usually give them at the beginning of a unit, and they have about 3 to 4 weeks to complete them. So I tell them when they write their unit test, this is the day that they actually hand in their thought books to me. And the thought book, sometimes it reinforces what we've done in class, but a lot of the times it also involves them like doing research or thinking back to what we've done. So what Sarah has up on the screen, those are just some pictures of screenshots of the new thought books that I've created. So what I did is, because I don't know what's happening in September, last week I took the weekend and I made a psychology and sociology book on Google Slides. So that way I would just put that link up on the D2L, and then I would force a copy, and then they can have their own access to it, and then they would just fill out the thought book throughout the 3-4 weeks of the course.
So you have a question. Is the thought book part of the 30% summative assessment?
No, I usually just, depending on the time, it's usually just part of their assignments, or sometimes it has been a accommodating activity, but it's not part of their summative. I do, the thought book is for HSP 3U, 3C. So I also, depending on, it's usually a split class, so I'll usually have 15 and 15. I tell the C students usually to do certain pages and omit the others. But I do a traditional essay in that class along with the final exam. So a thought book is basically just where it doesn't have to necessarily be a book. It could be anything, but it's something that kids are able to. There's a genuine inquiry, and it gives them time and space to reflect on these questions and to go back to it. So if they were listening to a podcast, they could, throughout that time, they could reflect on that. Who do you think was the perpetrator? Why do you think that? How has that changed over time? So it's basically a space for them to reflect on their thinking. And as I said, like sometimes I use sticky notes. As I said, like it doesn't always meet thought book definitions, but sometimes they just get them to like, okay, we just did this, grab some sticky notes, write on that, throw it in your thought book. The good thing is that it does give them it differentiates their topics. So if I'm getting them to look up a famous sociological experiment, they can choose whatever experiment that they want. One thing that I really like about it is it helps them with time management. So as I said, I give them 3 to 4 weeks to complete it. A lot of them, we're an MSIP school, so we have MSIP once a week, and it's good for them to work on it during MSIP. If they have nothing else to complete, they can work on their thought books. We usually spend Fridays, I usually give them 30 to 35 minutes to work on their thought books. That way I'm walking around and seeing, you know, okay, like we just talked about norms, you should be able to complete this component of your thought book now. And then I'll check in, just because usually they don't hand it into the end, right? So I don't know if they've been completing all the steps. So that way I walk around and I just kind of take note. If I was teaching this online, I would have them submit it probably halfway through, like have a 2-week checkpoint just to make sure that they're completing everything. Another thing that I like about it is that it's creative. A lot of kids in the actual thought book itself, they like to doodle. They can, you know, draw pictures. There's different ways of answering a lot of the questions. It's also beneficial because it reinforces class concepts and it teaches them research skills depending on what the component is of the thought book. So I think what we're going to do now, in the folder that Sarah's going to share with you, there's 2 PDF copies of the thought book. What I used to do is to, like, you know, I'm not that tech savvy. I would, you know, create something in Google Docs, print it out, and then I would actually tape it to the tabloid picture, and then the tabloid piece of paper, and I fold it and to make it correctly into like a book. But what I did for September is I transferred them all to Google Slides just so that it's easier in case we are online and not collecting any work in person. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go into another breakout, and Sarah's going to share the thought books with you to look at.
All right, so I'm going to put you in breakout groups. If your breakout group is an even number, then we're hoping that you can look at the sociology thought book. And if it's an odd number breakout, so when that little white pop-up window appears, just look to see what breakout group you're going into. So even sociology, odd psychology. Just want you to take a look through it. These are the digital versions of the thought book. How do you think you might use thought books in your class? What do you think some benefits would be? How might you adapt these for a UC split or another course? So just kind of talking about how they could be useful. So I'm going to put you in breakout groups, and then you'll see in the chat the links to the 2 thought books, as well as the Padlet. So you can also add any ideas again to the Padlet.
And how long are we thinking for this, Sarah?
Oh yeah, good question, Laura. So it might take you a little bit to look through the thought book. So we're probably thinking about 8 to 10 minutes. Let's see, because you'll want to spend some time looking over them first before. Okay. So here we go. I will pull you back in 8 to 10 minutes. And I will post the links to both thought books in the chat.
Thank you. I said I was
Laura, sorry, did I say Sarah?
Yeah, yeah.
My bad.
Last week I was like scrambling to make them because I'm also doing summer school now, so I was like, oh, I got to get this done. So
Good on you.
Your digital versions look good, Laura.
Thank you.
It's Shelley.
Oh, hi Shelley, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Looks really good, Laura.
And the thing is, you could take, like, you can add things, you know, every year. Oh, you know what? We're not going to do this next year. Take it out or just like hide it. You know, you can definitely adapt it, or even just take one thing out for an assignment, right?
Yeah, that marijuana on a teenage brain was new from what I had.
Mm-hmm. I said I've been adapting it, right? Every year.
Yeah.
Like social science is great because new stuff comes up every year. So, you know, I'll take something out and add something else in. And
Add something in.
We were just talking about this. Yeah.
Those are mine.
That's so funny.
I'll turn off the sound.
Oh, no worries. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. I know that I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I just wanted to get, I did pop in on a few breakouts, and there were some amazing conversations happening and some amazing resources being shared. So if you have anything that really great came out of your breakout group, if you can add it to the Padlet, that would be lovely. I'll put the link in again. If anyone wants to unmute their mic though and share, feel free to do so. That'd be great to hear from you. It's pretty quiet. Okay. Okay.
Maybe we'll just.
Oh. Okay, so we're going to, we had a few breakouts, but for the sake of time, Laura's just going to kind of come through or go through some of the final topics, and then, but there will be an opportunity for questions at the end for anybody who wants to stick around and ask a few questions. So turn it over to Laura.
I know Chris asked in the chat about a specific dime for the Thoughtbooks. On the slideshow under the Thoughtbook section, I put a link to CD squared, or TCT, I think it is, the Critical Thinking Consortium, and they have more information on Thoughtbooks. So the next thing that I said, I'm going to go over these very quickly because I know everyone's time is precious. So the next thing is social justice, the HSE 4M, or even you could use these for any of these any age classes. Is the me-to-we. If we go to the next slideshow, if you click on those, it will link to Google Drive, and you can download those forms. So I like using these cards because, first of all, I had them printed. The school board printed them for me on nice paper and in color. And I use these as conversation starters in my class, especially when I'm starting to introduce their ISU topics. It obviously might have to look different in September depending on what's happening, but I'll usually break them up into groups, usually 3 to 4 kids, and they have to rotate around the classroom. And I usually post the cards around the on the whiteboards, and they have to choose a topic, and there's questions that go along with them. So if you look at the bottom, this one talks about food insecurity, and so it will give you basic information, brief stats and figures, and then it will have discussion questions. And I usually break them up, and I give them 10 minutes to discuss those topics. And then if we go to the next slide, Sarah created this chart that they used in my class for HSE 4M. So they had to choose 5 topics, and they wrote the topics in the triangles, and then they had to write down the facts and some just summarize information that they learned. And then they had to rank those from 1 to 5 as what they thought was, depending on what you want to do, it could be like the most serious or the most interesting. And then at the very bottom, I had them do a SID analysis. So what was the most surprising? What did they find interesting? And what did they find troubling? So that's the those topic cards. I'm just going to keep going because I know we're at 3 o'clock now. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, I think, is it okay if we skip the discussion on that? So the next thing is seminars and discussions. So what we've done is in the Google folder, we just put different graphic organizers in there and different templates for you to use for your classes. One thing that I discovered yesterday, some people might be already familiar with this, but the Khan Academy has a website about preparing for the SATs, and they give like a 1-page summary of our social science reading. And then there's 11 videos that actually break down how to approach the reading. So it talks about how to become like an active reader, you know, how to, you can see like the little codes that they wrote down, how to analyze for meeting. And I think I definitely will use this, that strategy in that website, even if we're not fully online, but I will use that in the class because it's very beneficial for those kids to learn how to break down those readings, especially if they're going to university or college the next year. So that's one thing. The next thing is we just put some graphic organizers in there about, you know, finding the main points, finding evidence, Cornell notes. There's a template there that if you're, you know, lecturing to your students, they can learn how to, you know, take a Cornell note. Sarah, how would they access the Google folder that we shared with them?
I'm going to share the links to the resources as well as the slideshow so that you can click through it. All of these are active links. So if you're going to the slideshow, you can access the resources this way, or you can just look in the folder. I did have 2 questions, Laura, just while I have you. So in the break, in the thought book, was the documentary called Inside the Teenage Brain?
Yes.
Okay. So
I
maybe
also
we
apologize. My kids are just getting home, so it's probably going to be
okay.
quite loud, and the puppies will be very excited in a second. So I apologize if there's some background noise.
And then I did have a teacher ask, and maybe we can come to this in the question and answer. So I'll throw it out there, and then maybe we can have a share at the very end. But for history classes, often there's like explicit teaching of the historical thinking skills. So just wondering if everyone could collect their thoughts on how they explicitly teach the social science thinking skills, and then maybe we can share at the end. So sorry, Laura, I will move ahead and we'll come back to that question.
So here's just some more graphic organizers. The school board said dogs are very excited. Our English consultant created a lot of these and made resources for different podcasts, readings, etc. So the first one is for a podcast. The second one, similar thing, going through an article, finding the main ideas and supporting points. I find kids really need those graphic organizers to help break down those readings. Even if they're in grade 12, a lot of them still are lacking the skill. So it's great to provide them with different organizers to help them break down their thoughts. So here are ones that that I use all the time. I'll give them a reading, and then I'll have them conduct a sit analysis. As I've already mentioned, like, you know, what did they find surprising? I'll usually say, you know, in one paragraph, what did you find surprising? What did you find interesting and troubling? And I'll have them post that online in a D2L discussion. And then they'll have to go in and comment on 2 of their peers' comments. And same with like maps. So what is the main idea of this reading? How can you apply different sociological theories to it? And what kind of personal connections can you make to it? So these are just, I made these on Google Draw, and kids can go in and type up their information, and they can also upload it very easily to the Dropbox on D2L, or if you're using Google Classrooms. And then here are some more just different organizers. There's an exit card there. The 3-2-1 strategy, you know, 3 things that they learned today, 2 things that they found interesting, and 1 question that they still have. The one at the very bottom is a Google slideshow, and what you do with that is you share it to all your students, and they basically grab one of the sticky notes and they type their answer, you know, what has stuck with them, what did they find interesting, or whatnot, whatever question you want, you can put in there, and they put the answer on a sticky note and they just drop it off. So it's kind of like you would do that in your classroom if you gave them all a sticky note, and as they were walking out of the classroom, you gave them an exit card and they just stuck it on the wall. But this is just a more a virtual learning wall instead.
Oh, okay. We were going to try that, but.
So this is the last thing, choice boards. This is nothing new. A lot of us have been using them this, you know, during COVID. So I created a choice board for HSB4U. It wasn't overly flashy. I just gave them different ways of presenting their knowledge. So it's always good to give them choices because, you know, there's different ways that they can, you know, demonstrate their knowledge. I did encourage my grade 12s to choose the traditional essay, but I said, you know, as long as you're demonstrating your knowledge, you know, you're showing the fact that you can conduct research, apply sociological theories, build an argument, then I'm quite happy. So what I found is a lot of kids did choose the essay. A few of them did pick the website, which I was actually really surprised with. On the next slide, there's an example of the website they created. So there's the link at the bottom, and I will use this as an example. It is such a fantastic project. They did so well on creating it, and that's not a template. Like, they added all of those pictures, all of those graphics, and like they made the colors. I'm not a tech person, so like I was really blown away, but the content was really, really good. But they were motivated because they were inspired by it. And now the dog has found their their squeaky toy. but it gave them ownership, but they were also very motivated because they were choosing a format that they wanted, and they were very excited by it. So we have some other forms of choice boards. So this is something that Sarah created she, as the consultant or the former consultant of the District School Board of Niagara. So this is one that she created for parenting. So this way you can differentiate how kids want to, like what kind of, how they learn the information. So here, you know, they'd have to, you know, go to 2 different boxes. They could read something, they could listen to something, they could watch something, and how they learn about, this is, what are the top 5 nutritional needs? So this is, they're not necessarily, you know, making anything, but this is how they're learning about that material. And then the next one, Sarah created, same thing. So here they'd have to choose one strategy to demonstrate their knowledge. So they could create a Venn diagram, you know, do a TED Talk, a different graphic organizer, etc. So once again, just giving the students choice. And I believe the last thing that we have is Sarah has created some templates.
These are just some more examples, but same idea. This one here is about a final product, but we do have templates. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
So there's links to templates also in that drive. They're much more techy, more advanced, and they're flashing. Those arrows are, you know, going on and off. But basically, she created templates for different courses that you could, and to give you some ideas as to what you could potentially put in there.
Lovely. Okay. Well, I know that at the end was a bit of a mad rush, but we do want to give people an opportunity to add some things to the Padlet. I will share the link to the slideshow and the Google Drive with all of the resources. We are asking, I mean, we do want you to stay around and ask questions, but we also understand if you have to leave because it is supposed to be from 2 to 3. But we do ask that for OHASSTA's sake, because we do take the survey information to plan for future webinars. If you could take a moment and complete the survey, that would be greatly appreciated. We also have more webinars coming up in the month of August. One is the War Museum. Will be sharing some of the resources that they've recently created to get students doing history. And the other one is for grade 10 history, approaching it thematically and then with a blended or online lens in mind. So 2 webinars that are coming up. So feel free, we'd love to see you back at one of those webinars, or please share it with some of your colleagues. And I will open it up to any questions and any questions, even anybody else in the group if they want to share. I know there was that question about explicitly teaching the social sciences. So if anybody has any resources they could share, that would be amazing as well. So quiet. No questions? Okay. Well, I will take this opportunity to thank Laura Shelton for all of her hard work in coming out today to share these great resources and provide the prompts for some amazing breakout groups. I know it takes a lot of time, so we greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to put the link for the slideshow in the chat and the resource folder as well.
I also wanted to thank everyone for coming today, and hopefully you found something that you'll be able to use in September.
Totally.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, OHASSTA.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yes,
Good
thank you
for
so
that.
much.
Thanks,
I also
Laura.
wanted to thank everyone for sharing, looking at the Padlet, the awesome resources that everyone was sharing. So it's great when we have time to come together and, you know, share our resources, and that's just how we become better.
Thanks very much for sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Learned a lot.
Greatly appreciated.
I do have a question, so anyone can answer this. This is not necessarily addressed to a specific person, but whoever has used choice boards. So I've explored the the Peel District School Board website where many choice boards are gathered, and I have already put that on the Padlet if anyone wants to see like literally dozens of different choice boards that have been created. They're wonderful. But I've noticed that in some choice boards, it's really obvious when you click on an activity where the assessment piece comes in and where a student is reporting on the activity they're doing, and ones that is just like, there are some choice boards where a lot of the activities are just independent practice and there's no way of knowing that the student did it. And I've talked to a lot of parents during distance learning, and considering that like even just navigating something like Google Classroom is just way too much clicking for some families. Does anyone have feedback on how we can do choice boards in such a way that like it is as easy as possible for a student to get to the actually reporting of learning by using the choice board?
Do you mean like to do the product?
Yes, to do the product without clicking through so many different websites.
Oh, I see. Well, the one that I don't know if this is what we're talking about, I'm not sure, but the one that we did for parenting, I'm not sure if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this one, the choice came in with regards, so the question was, what were the top 5 nutritional needs that they thought were top 5 nutritional needs for the first year of life? The choice came in this case, was just on the material that they could use to research that. And then this is a Google slideshow that has master slides. So they actually, it's a digital notebook in a way. They can write in these sections here. But the product all comes into one. So basically once they pick their top 5, they explain it and insert a visual. And that's how they're going to justify their top 5 needs. Is that what you mean? So that it's all in one nice little place?
Yes, this looks like a wonderful example of a choice board because everything is in one place, aggregated.
Yes. The other one that we shared was, for example, this one here, which is just a processing choice board. We didn't make most of the templates. They were on Twitter because people were so amazing and they were sharing so many great things on Twitter when we all went online. But this is the same idea. It doesn't matter which one you actually pick. All of these are included in the slideshow. So if they pick sentence starters, it's all here, current events. So technically they could at least look at all of the different ways that they want to process the information that they've been given. And also it takes a little bit of thinking and analyzing because students have to actually decide, okay, this is my question and information. What is the best way for me to organize my thinking? So this could be something if you started at the beginning of the school year that they use throughout the entire year, and they're just going to use different organizers and find what works for them. And all of these sources, if you look in the notes at the bottom, it tells you exactly who has shared these and created these on Twitter, in case you want to follow some of these amazing educators that are out there, because they're constantly sharing new things. So I don't know if that is helpful. I know choice boards can be kind of confusing, but I don't know if that's helpful.
That was very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, and all those things are linked in the slideshow as well, if you want to take a better look at them. Yeah, exciting. Any other questions or comments or anything you want to share? Okay. Well, thank you so much for all of your time. We will share out the recording and the resources and all of those things in a follow-up email as well. So on behalf of OHASSTA, thank you, Laura, and thank you for everybody who's attended today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. Thanks, you.
Laura.
Thank you, good day.
You too, good day.
Thanks, Sarah.